Hey, what's going on, y'all? This is David the Sunrise to Others coming back at you with another live video. I'm trying to do a quality check here before I get into the meat of the subject. Okay, it looks pretty good. Okay. Hey, what's going on, y'all? I want the feedback. Okay. So anyway, I want to talk about, because a lot of times we beat each other up, or we encourage the beating of self up over the choices that we make in a mate. But there are some. Oh, just by the way, if you ask like what qualifies me on this subject, I tell people all the time, like, I work in logistics, and so in logistics I am encouraged to understand the process of things. So I need to know, like, I put everything on the table, what is valued in the process, what is not valued in the process, and how to make the process more efficient. And so what we're talking about here is the efficiency of mate selection. So the first thing you have to do is understand it from this perspective, right? When you go in any particular restaurant, right, the choices that you have are limited by the particular restaurant that you find yourself in, right? So if I go into Olive Garden, right, I can't ask for deluxe fried rice with no pork, right? I'm limited in the scope. I'm limited in the scope because of the particular restaurant that I chose. Well, it's the same when you're trying to choose a mate, right? There are different selections in different ethnicities. So you have some people who marry outside of their race, right? They need, what they desire is something outside of the context in which they are typically looking for a mate. But when you're talking about looking for a mate in the black community, what's the family structure of the black community? Because that's going to determine the quality of the mates. And that's the reason why you don't have these conversations that we have about mate selection amongst black people that you have, let's say, amongst Asian people, right? Because I say this almost every day. 83% of black children will see their families dissolve by the time they're 18. That is imperative when you're talking about the mate selection of the coming generation, right? The coming generation is going to have to choose a mate from that 83% of black families that were dissolved before the age of 18. That's where you got to choose your mate from. You got to choose your mate from those dissolution families. That's where you choose your mate from. That's the restaurant that you go to choose your mate. So don't beat yourself up about your individual selection, because sometimes people act like there are these plethora of qualified black mates out there and you just chose the shitty ones. And that's just not how it happens, man. You choose somebody that you think that you can overcome that 83% with, right? You choose someone that you think you can overcome that 83% with, but there's a reason that they're that 83%. There's a reason for that. So don't beat yourself up about that. If the only option that you have to choose a better mate is to, like, I mean, let's just be real. If I wanted the mate that I think I deserve, I would probably have to go to the Asian community, because it's obvious that they have the family and value structures that I value, right? Amongst my people, we don't value that. That's why we have 83%. If we didn't have the 83% failure rate in our family structures, then we would be able to find people who value family the way we all claim to value family. But that's not what we do. We don't value family. That's why 83% of black children will see their family dissolve by the age of 18, and 67%, 7 out of 10, will see their families dissolve before they are 2, which means we can't keep a relationship together for 2 years. And those are the people that you got to choose a mate from. And I'm trying to say to you that your choice is not merely your choice. Your choice is not merely your choice. Your choice is determined by the context in which you have to make that choice in. And we have to make that choice in a context where 83% of our family structures fall apart. That means we, as individuals who are making the choice, have the values of a community that 83% of our children will see their family dissolve by the age of 18. Those are our values. Our values are facilitating that conclusion. And that's why in our relationships, we can't find the right mate, because there is no mate in a context where 83% of our family structures dissolve. All right, amongst Asians in America particularly, right? I don't know what it is in Asia. Amongst American Asians, 20% of their children will see their family dissolve by the age of 18. That means in the Asian community, they have good mates that reproduce good mates. They have good mates that reproduce good mates. We don't have good mates that reproduce good mates. That's not what we do. What we do is more of a smorgasbord, right? Like when we go into the restaurant, we just pick anything from anywhere, because that's the options that exist amongst us. Those are the options that exist amongst us, and it's all a matter of logistics, right? How we mate, how we select family, how we develop family, how we sustain family. All of that is going to determine the mates that are available to us, to our children, to our grandchildren. And we don't seem to think this is important, right? So the other day in the group, I asked, does it matter about a person's sexual history? And almost unanimously, everybody said, no, it doesn't matter. And I'm saying it's ironic, right? That for us, we don't think it matters how many sexual partners you have, but we can't find a decent partner. Right. And I'm telling you, because I work in logistics, that's what I do for a living. I make these connections to make sure that the process is efficient. I make these connections to make sure that the process is efficient. See, you think it's about the individual, and I'm telling you, no, it's about the process that creates the individual. Right. Working in distribution, one of the things that you get to see is the quality of productivity and the quality of manufacturing, right? So like if you want to go out and buy something of quality, like if you buy, let's say for example, I work on my car and I buy tools, right? When I buy tools, I want to buy tools based on the quality of the tool. When you buy a tool that say made in China, it's not going to be a quality tool. Why? Because they don't have the standard to create the tools that are necessary for the job that you need to do. The job that you need to do. The tool it's not built for that. So you got to go get a Craftsman, right? Craftsman is made in America. Craftsman is one of the best tools you can buy, I suspect. I'm not a mechanic. I work on my car, but I'm not a mechanic. But if you go to a mechanic will tell you the best tool that you need to buy. And he'll tell you, don't buy that cheap stuff made elsewhere. You need to buy something that's made in America, because men who work on stuff make stuff for men who work on stuff. So they make better quality here in America that's going to work for those tools. And I'm saying, if we want better mates, we got to have better families. And there's no other alternative. Do you understand? There's no other alternative. And I know people, I know this for a fact, that when people raising their kids, they don't care about who their kids are going to be for somebody else. But in the Asian community, that's not the case. Right? In the Jewish community, that's not the case. In the Arab community, that's not the case. They all have in mind their children and who their children are going to marry and who their children are going to reproduce and who they're going to raise, right? Because the fundamental aspect of, I'll say marriage, but it's just relationships or mating or reproducing in general, right? Is that you're not just producing physical beings, right? You're producing emotional beings, spiritual beings, social beings, all these characteristics that have to be built into the person. And that means that you have to have the structures that produce those people that can reproduce those people. And that's not what we do. That's not what we do. And people be talking to me like, do you see your children? Like, do I see my children? Like, do you understand like the importance and the value structures that are necessary to get my children to be viable mates for somebody else's children? And that does not include seeing your children, right? It does not include child support. Like when you listen to our arguments and our debates over how we engage and how we develop and how we nurture our children, it's not about family. It's not about family. So I'm saying, if you're looking for a mate that come from a structure that is not about family, what's going to be the quality of that mate? It's going to be you're going to have very shallow relationships. One sister said every guy she's been with has been a bum. Like, what you have to understand is black children don't inherit nothing from their parents. They don't inherit nothing from their parents. When you look at, so like here in St. Louis, I live in St. Louis, like something like 90% of the homeless are black men. 90% of the homeless are black men. And what that means is, like, there's a bell curve of options that are available to you, right? And a bell curve moves from left to right. So on the left end is the low, on the right end is the high. We are very heavy on the left end, right? We're very heavy on the left end. And that's why for a lot of black men, they're involved in a lot of crime, right? Because they're on the bottom. They're on the bottom. So of course, if you decide to date a black man, the likelihood that he's going to be a bum is very high. It's very high, right? I'm in middle management, right? And I do these trainings, and I go to these trainings with the managers and the VPs and all these people. I do these trainings, and the higher up I go in the organization, the fewer black men I see, right? And what I think about when I see this context is the fact that that it's what I say. On the bottom, on the left side, on the bottom end is going to be a lot of black men. On the top end is going to be few black men, which means when black women go out to look for a mate, you're going to find a lot of those choices coming from the bottom. And that's not their fault, right? We have a history here that has pushed us and forced us into the bottom. And then we are not doing what we need to do to facilitate a better outcome. If you want better men, black women, we got to have better families. There's no way around it. There's no alternative. There's no mentoring. There's no stepdads. There's not enough It's crazy, right? You can't. The idea that you're going to have better stepdads indicates that you had better dads to begin with. None of that works. We need to lock our families down. We need to secure our families, and we need to do the work to produce better mates for each preceding generation. And that's not what we're doing. We do what's best for us. You know, I used to think, and I'll close with this. I used to think when people say they stay together for the children, that, you know, like, why would you stay together for the children? What about your life? But now I know, right? Because the Jews have a saying, if I'm not for me, who will be? But if I am only for me, then who have I become? Who have I become if I'm only for me? And so when people talk about they love their children, I don't see that love in the family structures that we have, right? In order to love your children, there has to be love available in the structure, and there is no love in our structure. Our structure is about child support. It's about keeping it in your pants. It's about a lot of silly stuff that has nothing to do with love, and so we don't produce people who have the capacity to love.